All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you so much, folks, for tuning in this evening. It is an amazing January 17th, 2024. I will say we are finally looking like we're getting past the sub-zero temperatures here in Missouri, at least for a little bit. I'm the Maestro Jeremy Carp, and there is definitely a lot to look forward to this evening. In fact, very shortly, Andrew Henson's going to join me. We are going to be recapping what was a very interesting wild card round of the NFL playoffs, to say the least. All but one game was an absolute blowout, and the only one that wasn't was the Detroit Lions winning their first playoff game in 30 years, beating the Los Angeles Rams 24-23. Every other game, Browns, Texans, Jets, or Chiefs, Dolphins, Packers, Cowboys, Bucks, Eagles. I mean, Steelers, Bills, everything was a blowout. And now we head into the divisional round. A lot to talk about with that. And I will say before we get started, before I bring Andrew on, I want to say something about the Chiefs Dolphins game. So for those that don't know, it was exclusive on the Peacock streaming service, and it garnered 23 million total viewers according to the Nielsen ratings, which NBC said is the most streamed live event in United States history, and it was responsible for the most internet usage ever in the US on a single date, as 30% of the total internet traffic was used for the Chiefs game. Now, obviously, I mean, a 16.3 million concurrent devices were used to stream the football game. And, Peacock also streams English Premier League soccer, MLB, WWE, and college football, among the NFL. So this was a big success. And the NFL ratings have never been higher. 93 of the past 100 highest rated broadcasts have been NFL games. So obviously, there's no signs of that slowing down anytime soon. With that, now I do want to bring on Andrew Henson. And Andrew, let me tell you something. It has been an absolute crazy NFL playoff so far. I was mentioning, I mean, did you expect every game but one to be an absolute blowout?
Not a chance.
And, the one we're going to nearly finish with will be the one with your Packers beating the Cowboys, putting a 48-32 beat down. And some people may say, but that's only a 16-point difference. Look, you and I and everybody that tuned in knows that at one point it was 48-16, and the Packers put in their third stringers, and it was practically prevent defense.
And then,
So
they kind of started coming back on us soon.
and then Dallas started scoring some points, and they're like, okay, well, now we got to do something. But the playoffs kicked off on Saturday with the Cleveland Browns taking on the Houston Texans. Now, Cleveland entering this game with the number one defense in the league. And Houston heading into the playoffs with a surprising division title in their favor, a potential coach of the year candidate in D'Amico Ryans. And on top of all that, I mean, you got somebody who, if it wasn't for injuries, would be in the MVP talks, but he is at the very most, he's going to win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Some people think Puka will tie him and they'll get co-MVP Offensive Rookie of the Years. But come on, CJ Stroud is absolutely electric on so many levels.
Absolutely.
And Cleveland had no answers. It was a good back and forth game in the first half. Houston only led 24-14 heading into the third quarter, but after that, two pick sixes by Joe Flacco. We knew the magic was going to run out at some point. I know you got a lot of love for Flacco, and I just got love for the fact Cleveland went this far with all the injuries. But
Strongest arm in the game. Maybe not strongest, but you know what I mean.
Definitely one of the strongest. And you know what? Kudos to him for at least trying to throw the ball down the field and
Mhm.
try to make some plays happen. Unfortunately, it just didn't go well. Houston answered everything, you know. They really came out firing. They end up winning 45-14. And next week they're facing the Baltimore Ravens with your Super Bowl pick. You predicted at the beginning of the year that the Ravens would win the Super Bowl, and you predicted Lamar Jackson would win the MVP.
Sure did.
How do you think this game's going to match up?
Do you want me to be honest?
Yes.
I'm scared for my Super Bowl pick.
Really?
Listen, I'm a very big component. I do not like rest in a sport like
Yeah.
this, and they've had way too much rest, especially the quarterback.
It'll be 3 weeks of rest for Lamar Jackson. He did not play the last week of the season. He did not. Obviously, the Ravens had the number one seed in the AFC, so they didn't have to play a wild card game. So now you're finally heading into here. You're heading into the divisional round against, once again, probably the hottest team in the AFC
Yep.
and one of the 2-3 hottest teams in the NFL. So
yeah, I'm kind of scared. I'm not gonna lie, but
it's a
it is
good
what it is.
matchup, you know. It's I look at it on paper. Of course, people do need to realize that the Ravens are no slouches.
No, not a
There's
chance.
they are the number one seed for a reason, and they are the
Mhm.
Super Bowl favorites for a reason. But Houston has so much fire in them.
Mhm.
It's the thing of it is the expectations are so high for Baltimore. Houston has nothing in the sense of expectations. You weren't
Look,
even
look,
expected to be this point in the season to have them here.
man. People said that Bryce Young was light years ahead of C.J. Stroud before the draft.
Yep. And meanwhile, Bryce Young's was getting his butt whooped in Carolina. They finished 2-15.
No profanity on the pod.
Right. I mean, we can say ass. He's getting his ass cooked there too.
Mhm.
And it was rough,
Pretty bad.
but CJ Stroud defied all odds, and here he is. And even without Tank Dell,
Yeah,
and
Tank Dell was a monster.
Tank Dell was a monster. You get Devin Singletary, who's been a great dual threat running back for the Texans. A solid defense. Houston can really make some noise, and you look at the four teams that are left in the AFC. To me, they match up well against all of them.
Yeah.
Problem is they got to face the top one.
You mean a team has faced them as the top team, right?
Well,
No, I'm
yeah.
kidding. No, I'm kidding.
So Houston wins. They face the Ravens, but then later that night on Saturday night, we had the exclusive Peacock wildcard game, the Chiefs and the Dolphins. So we talk about Cleveland with the number one defense. Miami had the number one offense. And man, okay. Fourth coldest playoff game in history. Temperatures got down to minus 30.
Crazy.
It got so bad, part of Mahomes' helmet got cracked off.
That was wild. That was wild.
Like helmets were not meant to do that, but the temperature had a lot to do with it. And multiple people did unfortunately have to go to the hospital being treated for, cold related illnesses, hypothermia, frostbite. Meanwhile, the Dolphins went 1 for 13 on third downs. They had no answers, and Tyreek had terrible. Tyreek was locked down. Steve locked him down. And the Chiefs won 26-7. What was your thought process when seeing that happen?
You know the crazy thing? What if I told you I wasn't surprised at all? It was a little too cold for them Florida boys. I really think it was a little too cold for them Florida boys.
I mean, but the thing of it is, the reason I kind of am not using that as much of a crutch for the Dolphins, they play 6 cold games a year at least when they have to go to Buffalo, Foxborough, and MetLife. So
Yeah,
they're already guaranteed about 6 frigid cold games, depending on when they play them. It's something that they're already accustomed to. Um, Nevertheless, yeah, you got a point about them being locked down by the Chiefs, and it doesn't surprise you.
they should have
Um,
relied more on the run game though.
they gave up on the run game too early. Tua was not. Look,
Very.
say what you want about Tua. He had no chance. There was no chance.
Mm-mm.
Um, do you think after the game he's still the franchise quarterback?
Yeah, he had a great year. I can't imagine moving on from him like that. And they owe it to him to get at least one more year.
Because they botched up the year before with all the concussions.
They owe him everything.
They owe him a lot that goes beyond a football starting
But no,
role.
I don't see why you would move on from him.
Yeah, and we got the good doctor JM saying that Tua is Tebow reborn. What are your thoughts on that? And folks, be sure to send in all your comments.
I don't see
it. Tua is ultra talented, but the thing of it is, to me, there is something on this Dolphins team that I feel is going to continuously hold them back from getting that next level.
Okay.
Even if it means not the wow. I mean, currently the Dolphins own the longest playoff drought in the NFL as far as winning a playoff game. They haven't won a playoff game since 2000. So it's almost like the curse of Dan Marino. They haven't won a playoff game since Dan Marino retired.
Wow.
If you want to be technical.
Okay, here's a question. Are you saying that Tua just isn't the right quarterback for Miami?
There was times Tua looked like an MVP. There was really times, but there were also times he looked like a lost dog out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I also say part of it, of the reason the Dolphins' downfall, you lost Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb at the worst possible times.
There it is.
First off, okay, the Jalen Phillips one is a freak accident. And because it happened in the Jets game, and it's just one of those things. Bradley Chubb, your team was getting blown out by over 30 points with 3 minutes in the game. There is no reason Bradley Chubb should have been in that game still.
Nope.
There's no reason. And that falls on Mike McDaniel and the rest of the Dolphins organization. Once again, mishandling a situation. And
what's new?
Literally. And so I look at the Dolphins. I think it may not even be a Tua problem. It's definitely not a receiver problem or an offensive problem, and they got a lot of talent on defense. I know a lot of people like Mike McDaniel. I think it just comes to it might come to an inexperience problem. Like, look at guys like Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, John Harbaugh, even guys like Sean McVay and Sean McDermott. There is something they all have, the ability to be a true leader. And I don't think Mike McDaniels has that
Even
same...
Even my coach has. Even my coach.
Yeah, and look at them. Yeah, I was going to say, Matt LaFleur. And look at DeMeco Ryans. People will say, but he's not experienced. But he was born from the game. He was born and bred in the game of football. So he's seen it. He knows it. He's a player's coach. That's why DeMeco Ryans is so good, because he is literally, he's like the advocate for the players. That's why they rally with him so well. Mike McDaniel, to me, and he always looks so awkward. He always looks awkward when he's there. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I think that is going to come back to bite the Dolphins in the backside when when push comes to shove. So while you can say the elements hurt the Dolphins, which it did, when you say the Chiefs defense, which I said in the past is an elite defense, how they shut down the Dolphins,
Oh yeah.
like I'll give it to Miami. The Chiefs went 2 for 6 in the red zone. Let me tell you, if they don't go 2 for 6, this game they're putting 60 on Miami. Okay,
Easy.
Butker is the MVP of the past 8 weeks for the Chiefs. But you take out those red zone issues, Kansas City's absolutely destroying the Dolphins in that game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this much. If I'm the Dolphins, if I won that game, if I somehow won that game in Arrowhead, you got to go to an even worse environment the next game, which is what brings us to our next matchup, because Patrick Mahomes is going to have his first true road game next week in the playoffs.
I'm excited.
This, folks, yes, this is Patrick Mahomes' first true road playoff game. We exclude the Super Bowls because those are neutral sites.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking that he is going to, though you could argue the Tampa Bay one, but he is going to Orchard Park to face the Buffalo Bills. And I have to ask this question. This is going to be a topic on the I-70 Sports Media website. Is Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen the next Tom Brady and Peyton Manning?
Or is it Patrick Mahomes and what's his name? Cincy. Why did I blank on his name?
Oh, Joe Burrow.
You pick. Who is it?
I think it might be Josh Allen, because this is my thing. The stakes, they've met in the playoffs more often. They've met in the regular season more often.
Okay. Wait, how many times have aren't they both 3? This will be the 3rd, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean,
Joe Burrow and
the thing of it is, Mahomes is 1-3 against Josh Allen in the regular season, but
2-0 in the playoffs.
And the 2-0 in the playoffs is different. So if you want to go all time, and of course my dad says the 72 Dolphins would probably be the only Dolphins team that would have won that game because, of course, undefeated. But,
what you know about Joey Mercury?
Right. We look at the Bills and this whole thing with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. We saw how earlier this year went when they faced off. One of the most controversial games of the season for a lot of reasons. A lot of big no calls, a lot of calls.
Not going to speak on it.
And we'll see who the officiating crew is going to be this time around. But I will say this much. There is no home field advantage in this game because both teams are so accustomed to this weather.
Mm-hmm.
And although I will say I don't think any team can get accustomed to 2 feet of snow.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Now, you do know who wasn't accustomed to the weather? The Pittsburgh Steelers. They were down. I will give them props. They did make it interesting.
They did.
But they were down 21-0, and that's when you knew there was no chance they were coming back to win that game. Mike Tomlin has made it clear he's going to return next year. We have coaches that we're going to talk about that are no longer with their teams, but we'll talk about the fact that Mike Tomlin is returning. I think that was a big focal point after the season.
My mics are coming back.
And I know you got a lot of high praise and respect for Mike Tomlin. I get it. I respect it. He is an all-time great coach. But my thing is, did he peak too early? I mean, the Steelers, there are over 20 teams in the NFL that have won a playoff game since the Steelers last won a playoff game. I mean, that says something.
A little bit.
I think the problem with Pittsburgh is, okay, look, obviously consistency is a great standard to have,
Mm-hmm.
but consistently stagnant is not. And
No.
I think what the Steelers are starting to have happen is, okay, let's all talk about Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season record every year. I give him credit that they went 10-7 this year. Hell, they were 2-5 or 3-5 at one point. There's no reason they should have been 10-7.
Mm-mm.
They lost to Arizona and New England 2 weeks in a row. There's no reason they should have sniffed the playoffs.
Not a chance. But
I'll
then,
even say that Cleveland shouldn't have sniffed the playoffs after losing everybody 26% of their players or of their salary cap to injured reserve.
yeah.
But they embraced the next man up mentality. Pittsburgh embraced the we're not going down without a fight mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point you look at the 9-8 seasons or the 8-8 season, you look at just how it kind of just sticks around. You say to yourself, how much longer can they say we'll settle for just getting to the dance as opposed to being the best dancers?
Make the playoffs more than the Browns do.
Yeah, and the last time they faced in the playoffs, you talk about a butt whooping of its own. What was that first snap like? Exactly. I want to frame that Big Ben sitting on the bench meme with his head down. I want to frame that someday.
You gotta put the Big Ben card right there.
Oh god, yeah, I still got it. I'm never selling it. I'll
So
tell you.
let's go back to Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen though.
Yes, we
So
do.
this will be their third time going against each other. In the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes has lost 3 times. 2 to Tom Brady and 1 to Joe Burrow. Is this going to be third time the charm? Third quarterback he loses to? Third time going against Josh Allen? Finally losing?
Well, it could be, but the thing of it is, you look at Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning is considered one of the greatest rivalries of all time.
Absolutely.
And it was a big chunk of my childhood. I growing up watching football every postseason. I remember watching these Brady Manning matchups. But here's the interesting thing: you talk about how Mahomes is 2-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs. I mean, we take a look at Tom Brady and Peyton Manning facing off. I mean, the results are that when it came to the Colts versus, in the grand scheme of the things, Manning had the 3-2 postseason edge over Tom Brady. Brady had the 11-6, or I'm sorry, he had the 9-3. Yeah, Brady had the 9-3 advantage over Manning. Manning had the 3-2 postseason advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it to where Tom Brady right now, Patrick Mahomes is mirroring a lot of what Tom Brady did to Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
The only team that was his kryptonite is retired now, or the only quarterback that was truly his kryptonite was retired, and that's Tom Brady. Joe Burrow has one playoff win against him,
Yep,
and it wasn't even because of Joe Burrow. The Cincinnati defense really locked down.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to them. I'm not selling this defense short of Cincinnati. But you look at this matchup, the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes battles are going to be the ones we remember. Like, how vividly do you remember the last time Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes faced, as opposed to the game where within about a minute 13, the score changed 4 times between the Bills and Chiefs?
Yeah. And then the kickoff. The overtime.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Like, I look at it as where this is Patrick Mahomes' toughest postseason yet.
Mm-hmm.
On paper. The
It
Dolphins
is.
If it wasn't for the sake of the bad weather, we don't know what would have happened. I'm not saying the Dolphins would have guaranteed one, of course not. But you put it on a neutral environment, weather-wise, Dolphins can play hot.
Oh yeah,
But
they
Arrowhead
can.
is unlike any other place. This is the first time the Chiefs are at the number one seed. This is the first time they are not the most feared team in the AFC. This is the first time the Chiefs have to prove they belong instead of just belonging.
Neither team is the most dangerous team in the AFC right now, but that's my opinion.
And I agree with that. The Bills, once again, if it wasn't for Miami choking at the end of the season, the Bills wouldn't be in the playoffs either.
Crazy, ain't it?
There is a lot. The only team in the postseason right now that from start to finish purely dominated was the Ravens. And even they had some spats here and there.
Real talk.
But Baltimore, I mean, look what happened. Baltimore, and we're about to get to the NFC. Baltimore went to San Francisco, who is the number one seed of the NFC, and look what they made Brock Purdy look like. Look what they did to that Niners team.
They made him look like a JV quarterback.
Exactly. They shut down the Niners. So I'm looking at this playoff picture in the AFC, and it's a complete toss-up. You got, four great young quarterbacks. You got, and it's crazy because I'm pretty sure Patrick Mahomes is the oldest of the four. And that tells you a lot. But you got Mahomes versus Josh Allen again, which is always fun to see. And you got Lamar Jackson versus CJ Stroud. And I'm excited for both. Right now, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go with the Texans over the Ravens. I'm going Texans over the Ravens because the hot streak. Look, you're the one that even said it. You don't like rust, and I said it to you a few weeks ago. The rust is going to come back and bite Lamar. Obviously, it's prediction, so anything could happen. But I got the Texans beating the Ravens, and I got the Chiefs beating the Bills. There are two different types of Patrick Mahomes. There is regular season Pat Mahomes and postseason Pat Mahomes. Regular season Patrick Mahomes is amazing. Postseason Pat Mahomes is a genetic freak of nature.
Out here hobbling on one leg to win a Super Bowl.
Exactly. Like, Pat Mahomes will literally die on that field to get his team a win in the playoffs. So who are your predictions for the AFC in the divisional round?
I got Baltimore. I gotta stick to my gun.
Okay.
But I won't lie, Houston does scare me. If they win, I won't be surprised.
Okay.
And I gotta take Kansas City.
Oof, Chiefs and Ravens in the AFC title game. That'll be something.
I just can't see it. Like I can't see Josh Allen winning. Like until I see it.
The Steelers not having TJ Watt is huge because they're 1-12 without TJ Watt. And Josh Allen made them look like fools.
Real talk.
Second
longest run in postseason history.
Yeah, this Chiefs defense, man, like, it isn't just up front. It is the secondary that has stepped up big time.
Real talk.
Like Trent McDuffie, especially one of the better slot corners in the NFL. I think he's proven himself a lot this year. A lot of people expected him to exceed expectations, and I think he definitely has. But I'm excited for it. Now, we switch gears now, folks, to the NFC. Man, oh man, oh man. Okay, well, we're gonna start off first with we're gonna start off with the only non-blowout playoff game this week, and that was the Detroit Lions and Los Angeles Rams. Now, a quick backstory for all two people that probably don't know this: the Lions quarterback is Jared Goff, who was drafted by the Rams, #1 overall years ago, while the Rams quarterback, Matthew Stafford, was the former #1 overall pick by the Lions back in 2009. And Los Angeles went to Detroit. Detroit won their first playoff game since 1991. Detroit won its first playoff game since 1991. And I mean, they're going to be having a date with the Tampa Bay Bucks. We'll get into that later. But what was your biggest takeaway, Andrew, from that Lions-Rams game?
Puka is legit. Listen, Puka is legit.
Yeah. Puka Nacua.
Let's just start with Puka. Puka is legit.
Yeah. I mean,
they might have lost, but what else you want from him?
I mean, I was going to say, think of it is, I mean, Puka got 9 catches, 181 yards, and a touchdown. He had a 50-yarder. And
what else you want?
This is a team whose #1 receiver is technically Cooper Kupp.
Now, I will say something about the game. You know, everyone knows I like to call out the referees for their terrible calling and missed calls and everything of that nature. The amount of missed calls that they had of people holding Puka, especially at the end of the game, was absurd. Absolutely absurd. That's all I'm going to say on that. This game could have had a lot different of an outcome, but we had some blinders on. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah. I think one thing I've talked about, and I talked about it when James was on last week, was the aggressiveness of Dan Campbell and how it could easily come back and bite the Lions in the ass. I think this week, I think this past week, I mean, it should have, it very well could have, but man, when he's on it, he's on it. Third down, I think it was your 2nd down and 9 or 3rd down and 9 at the end of the game. And look, you could easily run that ball, force the Rams to use timeouts, do whatever you got to do. Instead, what does he say? Here, we're going to just throw the ball. And they got the 1st down, and that was it. And I'm like, they really did this. Like, MCDC did this. And good for Detroit, man. Look, I mean, bring the Rams. Shout out to Jared Goff. Look, I'm taking any bias, anti-Rams bias or anything like that aside for a second. Because kudos to the Detroit Lions. First off, kudos to the city of Detroit. Because, I mean, it was just about 10 years ago, they were literally a city bankrupt. And here they are. They made about $20 million from that playoff game alone. When it came to revenue.
Ain't that crazy?
Like, the economy is boosted so much. People don't realize how much the economy is boosted by good sports teams. Exactly. And Detroit, I mean, has shocked everybody. Jared Goff finally has proven that he is a bona fide caliber NFL quarterback among, at the very least, top 15, if not top 10. Because he's not going to be flashy. He's going to make mistakes. But when push comes to shove, he is a true leader. And even Sean McVay's gone on record saying he regrets how him leaving Los Angeles was handled.
Yeah.
And you can see why. Now, and this is not a knock on Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's fantastic too. Matt Stafford has a chance to be a Hall of Famer. But this whole season is a story of redemption and destiny for Jared Goff.
True.
Because he's been through so much in his career. People say he's a system quarterback. They don't think he would have any success anywhere. He shouldn't even have. Honestly, the team around him that he does is phenomenal. I mean, you look at the great offensive line the Lions have. Because when you think about great offensive lines, You think of the Browns, you think of the Eagles, you think of at least last year you thought of the Chiefs. Like there's a lot of good offensive lines in the NFL. But the Detroit Lions, they got Frank Ragnow, they got Penei Sewell. I mean, they've two of them are Pro Bowlers. Like you got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as the running backs.
You got two solid rooks. Sam Laporta.
Kudos to him playing after hyperextending his knee the week before. And making the big time difference that he is. Because guess what? Linebackers usually cover tight ends, but Sam Laporta is a fast tight end, and linebackers ain't able to cover him.
It's starting to become a trend now, isn't it?
It is. So I guess that leaves next up. Obviously, they play the Bucs next week. We'll get to that one later. But now I think it's time we talk about, folks.
We didn't even talk about the Bucs.
We're going to talk about the Bucs.
Oh, okay.
But I know, based off the hat you're wearing and the flag you're repping, what team needs to be talked about. And that is the Green Bay Packers absolutely embarrassing the Dallas Cowboys. And quick side note about that, do you know the Packers are undefeated at Jerry World?
What can I say? I knew it.
Like, I think it's hilarious. The Packers have never lost in Dallas.
Des Bryant, that was not a catch. Could you imagine if he responds? That'd be hilarious.
Oh my, I'd get a kick out of it. So, yeah, do you think Des Bryant caught it?
You already know my answer. Do you want me to repeat
I know.
it?
Yeah, repeat it one more time. Did Des Bryant catch it, Andrew?
He ain't got hands. Butterfingers.
Oh, God. Okay, well, nevertheless, so, look, you want to talk about teams that are exceeding expectations? We talked about the Houston Texans. What are the Green Bay Packers doing? They have no business being in the playoffs, but you know what?
We're rebuilding.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. If you ever want a perfect analogy as to why life isn't fair, just look at the Green Bay Packers. You go from 1992 to 2007 with Brett Favre. Then you go from 2008 to 2022 with Aaron Rodgers. Now you got Jordan Love in, and look what the amazing stat. I mean, Jordan Love's – look, we already know Lamar's probably going to be the MVP, but Jordan Love's stats – he threw for almost 5,000 yards this year. Well, I'm sorry, not 5.
He threw over 4.
Yeah, he threw over 4. Almost 40 touchdowns, though. He went 4,159 yards, a 64% completion percentage, 32 touchdowns, only 11 picks, a 96.1 rating.
Put respect on my quarterback. Not a Pro Bowler, no All-Pro, no nothing. One of the best quarterbacks statistically in the league. Put respect on his name.
He has more.
I'm gonna keep saying it.
No, I get it, and it's like the fans are so behind Jordan Love. It's amazing. You know, you're out there with the receiving core. With the Packers are the youngest team in football.
Mm-hmm.
For a team that's based on consistency and longevity, they're the youngest team. Average age of the Packers is 25 years. You know, point decimal something.
Oof.
Younger you got. Yeah, I was gonna say I'll be 29 in June. I just thought about that for a second. Wait a minute, they're 25 on average. You know, look at their receivers. No true experienced receiver. No more Randall Cobb. You know, obviously, I hate to say it. No Devontae Adams. You know, your main experienced guys are not even Alan Lazard. You got Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are the main guys that are leading the way. Luke Musgrave, really rookie, shined in his first season. You know, yeah, exactly. And then you got the running backs. You got Aaron Jones, who's the most experienced of the offense.
What he
Injuries
carry?
hampered him a lot this year, but when he's healthy, I mean, look what happened. He ripped the Cowboys' run defense to shreds. Another
Mm-hmm.
top Cowboys top 3 defense in the NFL. What happened? Just allowed 3 touchdowns just to Aaron Jones alone.
Almost gave up a fourth.
Almost a 4th touchdown. I look at, and I don't know. You tell me. I want you to tell me this. Was that game more of an indication of how good Green Bay was, or just how bad Dallas truly is?
That game to me, how do I want to say this? Can you hear me? No.
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, well, hang on. He's got a little technical difficulty on his end, but while he takes care of that, no, it's definitely for me. I think the Green Bay Packers. It shows how good they've been in the second half of the season. First half of the season, there was a lot of struggles. Second half, they really picked it up. And whereas Cowboys, they were tussling with the Eagles all season long. Cowboys made it to the playoffs. They won the division. They were expected to compete with the Niners. Andrew, welcome back. So, what do you think? Was it more of
Sorry
a
about that.
Packers being good,
Technical
Cowboys being bad, a
difficulties.
little bit of both?
I think that the Cowboys underestimated what the Packers were going to bring to the table. And I think that the Packers are just hungrier right now, and they're on a hot streak, and I feel like they just feel disrespected right now. The Packers
I
have
can
no Pro
definitely,
Bowlers and only one All Pro. Like,
yeah, that's
you
a
know,
return
when you
man.
feel disrespected, you perform harder, better.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about being backed up against a wall. And once again, it comes down to having nothing to lose. Packers, look, if the Packers go to San Francisco next week and lose 40-0, will it be embarrassing? Yeah. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, it won't be depressing or disappointing because guess what? Nobody expected Green Bay to get here. Nobody expected them to because everybody thought everybody thought the Vikings were winning this division. Nobody thought the Bears were going
Oh
to do
yeah.
anything. Lions, decent enough. But this was supposed to be the Vikings division. Kirk Cousins goes down. They have to shuffle around a bit. Um, you know, and some injuries happens, freak accidents. But here comes Green Bay. Green Bay is going out there and good for them. I look at what is going on now with the Green Bay Packers, and I'm saying, they've gone about it the right way. And now we look at at the Cowboys. Once again, another disappointing season for the Cowboys. I don't know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing it because screw the Cowboys. But look, at some point, Dak Prescott said himself, you're going to put McCarthy on the hot seat, you're going to have to put me on it too. Well, McCarthy's coming back, but you cannot pay Dak Prescott $60 million a year for the Cowboys to just get to the wild card round. This proves there's more glaring issues. The once dominant offensive line's getting older. They don't have the true run game that they thought they would once Zeke left. CeeDee Lamb, top 3 receiver in the NFL, but he's not going to carry the load for them. And I look at what's going on with the Cowboys. And there's more questions than answers in that organization. And like I said, anything to piss Jerry Jones off will make me
Second
woke
that.
like and like here's the thing. To Andrew, is Dak worth 60 million a year? Exactly. Like because that's what the rumor like what he wants, what the rumor extension would be. And obviously to me the only quarterback that'd be worth that is Patrick Mahomes. Um because I already have enough issues with Russell's contract, with Deshaun's
All right.
contract, with Burrow's contract.
They're gonna
So,
keep going up.
but the thing of, okay, if they keep going up, that's one thing, but they got to go up for the proper, the talent, the results, and the money have to equate to each other.
There you go.
You can't have a
Why are you
mid.
dissing Danny Dimes without bringing him up right now?
Believe it or not, I didn't even think of Danny Dimes, but I'm glad you mentioned it because he's right up there. Um, but there's also a difference between his isn't even performance. This is staying healthy. Then again, the best ability is availability. And right now, if you're on the New York Giants, you are struggling to do that. Um, so I take a look at what's going on with the Giants situation, with the Bengals situation. I mean, neither team made the playoffs, and they have you know, Deshaun Watson got paid a buttload of money. The Browns made the playoffs. Deshaun went 4-1 as a starter. He had a decent year, but once again, a lot of questions about his health. Russell Wilson didn't make the playoffs this year. So and Andrew, I'll tell you this much because Andrew had mentioned it to me before we went on the air. Dak and the Dallas Cowboys at the rate they're going will never make it back to the Super Bowl at the level they're at. They're just once again, it's coming down to a Steelers thing where they just get to the dance, but they're not the best dancers on the stage. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, Andrew will probably not be able to join us for the remainder of the show. So I cannot on air get his predictions for the divisional round for the NFC, nor his Eagles Bucks thoughts, but allow me to delve into my thoughts on the Buccaneers absolutely destroying the Philadelphia Eagles. Once again, we have another blowout wild card game, and I'm telling you, I don't know. I don't know anymore. Philadelphia, you've probably heard it, folks, a million times, but I'm going to just say it 1,000,001. The Eagles started this season 10-1. 10-1. They finished 11-6. Lost the division. They have to play a road playoff game in Tampa to Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, who, say what you want, they were the winners of the worst division in football. NFC South is the worst division in football by a mile. Panthers are atrocious. The Falcons maybe will be better next year because Arthur Smith's no longer the coach. Saints general manager Mickey Loomis said he basically compared Coach Dennis Allen to Chuck Noll, Bill Belichick, and Tom Landry, and we all know that that is a terrible comparison to put Dennis Allen in. And then you got the Buccaneers, who they fought and clawed and they made it to the playoffs. Good for Baker Mayfield, by the way. If Joe Flacco doesn't win comeback player of the year, I would so give it to Baker Mayfield. He's earned himself a good contract next season. He had mixed success in Cleveland. He really did. Led him to the playoffs, beat the Steelers, had the shoulder issues, and I think, did not help his case. The thing of it is, Baker was never going to make $40 million in Cleveland. $40 million is, and he becomes a rental with the Panthers, and he was terrible. Did not do much with the Rams. Bucks take a chance on him. What do they got to lose? They thought Kyle Trask was going to be the guy after Brady retired. Baker said, nope, not yet. And look where he's at. Philly has a lot of questions to answer. I'll do a snippet later on Jason Kelce and his amazing career. The longtime center of the Eagles announced his retirement. He was visibly emotional on the sidelines. And I'll say to myself, what happens to Nick Sirianni? I mean, Nick Sirianni, besides the fact that a fan threw popcorn at him as he was exiting the tunnel after the game, but other than that, this Eagles team has a lot of questions that need to be answered. They limped into the playoffs. If it wasn't for the 10-1 start, they wouldn't have made it. There's a lot of questions about Jalen Hurts as a leader and as a healthy quarterback. There's questions about a lot of leadership issues. And your best leader, your biggest leader, is now retired. Look, anybody can say what they want, but there was not a bigger and better leader in that locker room than Jason Kelce, and now he's gone. The Eagles, in some weird way, shape, or form, are screwed. And Tampa Bay is going to be going to face the Lions, like I said, in the divisional round. I do have Detroit winning that game. I do have San Francisco beating the Green Bay Packers. So we'll have my predicted NFC championships are the Texans and Chiefs and Lions and Cowboys. Or I'm sorry, Lions and 49ers. And oh, here Andrew did comment though. So let me put this on here. He says, quote, okay, I will say this. The thing that scares me about the Packers is Kingsley Ingabire being hurt, Jair getting hurt, and the way Jake Ferguson killed us. Yeah, the tight ends up the middle. Look, seeing how Ferguson played against the Packers, watch out for George Kittle. He was still a top 3 tight end this year. And that's on a team that has Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey. I look at the Packers defense, and they do have a lot of work that needs to be done. Overall, I would love to say I'm hoping every game's a great game this weekend, but we just saw 5 blowout losses for teams in the previous week. 1 very close nail-biting game. I'm hoping it'll be better this week. With that said, folks, my final thoughts on the wild card weekend and what to look forward to in the divisional round is that there are still 4 teams in the NFL that have never been in a Super Bowl. The Jaguars have never been in it. The Browns have never been in it. The Lions haven't, and the Texans haven't. The Lions and Browns have won many NFL championships over the years. However, neither team has been in the post-merger Super Bowl. Lions are still in the playoffs, and the Texans are still in the playoffs. And for anybody that thinks Dallas is America's team, you guys aren't even Texas's team. Houston is the go-to team in Dallas, Houston's the go-to team in Texas. Yeah, Dallas may make all the money, but I'm sorry. Guess what? D'Amico Ryans and the CJ Stroud Houston Texans are going on to the divisional game while good old Jerry Jones and his $1 billion pocketbook are going to be sitting at home on the couch watching as his team is out yet again in the playoffs. And I could not be happier. So with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up this evening here on Roundabout Sports. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Andrew Henson for being on the show when he was able to. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Go to our YouTube channel, Interstate 70 Sports Media. You'll find all the Roundabout Sports episodes there. You can find us on interstate70sports.media. And Once again, like I said, you can find us on anywhere you can find a podcast. You'll find Roundabout Sports. As always, we put the NAMI helpline at the end of the show. That is 1-800-950-NAMI. That's 1-800-950-NAMI. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those who struggle. And of course, we close the show by putting up the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. For that, you dial 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on a leap year. Understand that you are never alone in the world. There is always somebody out there who loves you, who cares about you, who's always wanting to help you and give you the best path forward and staying strong. We all have struggles, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and none of those struggles should be something you should forge on alone. So I look forward to talking to you all next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, I'm the Maestro Jeremy Carp. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading.